All right, welcome everybody to Wapiti Wednesday Live Q&A for April 24th. Cannot believe 4 months of the year are already down. It's
24 of 24.
flying, flying by. Oh, Mr. Jim, Mr. Sandy, I do believe that Mr. Larry has an announcement to make.
Mr. Larry got drawn for the New Mexico elk tag first season.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Pumped. I started my conditioning program in Sirius today.
You know, it'd be even better if you told us that the unit you draw for was the Gila.
No, I didn't get the Gila.
Didn't get the Gila.
I
Not
didn't get the Gila.
not very many people get the Gila each year.
Yeah, but I have a friend that drew the Vavidal.
Oh, really? The
Yeah.
Valladolid, the ranch?
Well, beside the ranch, right?
You know, I remember one of the judges for the World Elk Calling Championships was one of the brothers that manage the Vidalis, and talking with those guys, man, they were always they're like, Michael, you need to just come down and hunt with us. And I'm like, I bet I do for $25,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'd be, they'd show you pictures and this and that. And then the year that the fire went through, I was like, hey, you're not showing me any pictures anymore. He's like, I can show you some charred trees. I said, yeah, I bet. I said, but it probably didn't affect the elk. Oh no, there's even more green grasses for them to get fat and sassy and lazy on. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, if he drew on the edge of that, he can pull some off that pretty dang easily. So,
Yeah.
all right. So tonight's topic is going to be blood trailing, something that not really talked about a lot. I'm just going to kind of break it down how I do it and kind of talk about some of the challenges and some of the shortcuts that I've learned over the years. So now the first thing is, how long do you wait after the shot? And you're going to see people out there, you need to wait 45 minutes. You need to wait an hour. If you're going to expect me to sit there and wait for an hour after a shot, you might as well get tie downs and strap me into a tree, because it ain't going to happen. I can't do it. And in fact, the moment that elk is out of sight, and I've kind of collected myself a little bit, I will leave my pack and my bow right where I shot from, and I will walk up to where that bull was standing and where he took off. And you can always tell, even though sometimes it happens really fast, you're always looking at a tree or a bush or something that's near him, and then you walk towards that, and you can see where the earth is turned up, where he took off running. Then I will go past and start looking for my arrow. I want to find my arrow if I can, because that's going to give me a lot of information. So if I'm able to recover my arrow and the blood on it is bright red, that tells me I got heart or arterial. That dude's going to be down in less than a minute. If there's bubbles on it, lungs. Again, he's going to be down in a matter of minutes. If it's dark red, then I know I got a liver hit. And then, of course, if there's greenish matter on it, then I know I got a punch hit. So, but that can be kind of tricky too, because, story time real quick, that guy. So I shot that guy at 14 yards, perfectly broadside. I watched him go leap across the road, and Lance was up top bugling. There was two bulls going, and I slipped down and kind of slipped in on him while he was going. And then he heard me coming through the brush, and then he kind of came over too. But I shot him at 14 yards, watched him wheel, go, jump across the road. Lance came down. Lance goes to high five. I am one that I will not high five, handshake, or nothing until my hands are on the horns. So don't celebrate too early. But so I went to where the bull was standing and started looking, and I find my arrow, and here's stomach matter on the arrow, and I'm like, this dude was 14 yards perfectly broadside. I know my pin was right behind the shoulder. How in the, and so of course then you start thinking, did I peek, did I move my front hand and peek, which caused that arrow to drift right? What the heck? And I mean, I was deflated. And so I grabbed my pack, started following his tracks, found where he jumped across the road, and was just kind of peeking down over the edge. And I took about 10 steps up the road looking down, and there he was piled up 30 yards off the road. And so we went down and flipped him over because he was laying with his right side up. And yeah, there was a hole just in the paunch right in front of his hind quarter. And I'm like, I gotta know. I gotta know. Let's flip him. I gotta see. The shot on the left side was perfect, right behind the shoulder. What it did is it caught the very, very edge of a rib and caused that arrow to turn. But it went in far enough that it clipped the back part of the heart and the back part of the lungs. So basically, this shot took out heart, lungs, liver, and out the paunch. So so usually, like I said, I want to get that arrow so that I can get information, because that's going to tell me how quick I can get on the blood trail. If I've got bright red blood or bubbly blood, I will go grab my pack, grab my bow, put the arrow in it, go back to where he was, and I will start following the trail slowly. And then based on the information that I start getting will tell me whether I'm going to keep proceeding or whether I'm going to hold for a little bit. The information that I'm looking for is, if I find good blood immediately, like spraying up on trees, bushes, there's gobs of it on the ground, then I'm going to keep going. If I'm only, if I go 50, 60 yards and all I'm finding is a little pin drop, I'm going to wait a little bit. So um, that is the most agonizing thing you can do, because then all of a sudden everything starts going through your head. Did I execute the shot correctly? Did I make this happen? And let's see. This is what I'm talking about. If I start off and I find something like that right off the get-go, I'm continuing. So, because basically this is what that blood trail looked like.
He's a goner.
It's a lot of blood.
Oh, and this was only 25 yards from where I shot him. That right there was a 14-yard frontal shot. So so if I'm finding that, I'm going to continue, because I know that bull is down less than a minute. So now, if it's bright blood, I go at a faster pace than I do if it's bubbly blood. So because they will bleed out and die faster from heart and arterial than they will from lung. So, but honestly, most of the time, even with a double lung hit or a lung shot, by the time you've recovered your arrow, you've controlled, you've gotten your composure back, you recovered your arrow, you're already 10, 15 minutes in. That bull's already down. He's expired. They don't go very far at all with heart or lung hits. The tricky thing with some lung hits too is where you hit on the body. If you get a high lung hit, you're not going to get very much blood because that cavity needs to fill up before it starts spewing out. So that's why sometimes you get on the blood trail and you don't get a lot of good information right off the get-go. It takes a little bit before you start getting, good blood and going, okay, we're good. And again, this is blood trailing is one of the things that the emotional roller coaster that you go through is just. I mean, you're the highest of highs on the low on the shot, and then all of a sudden you get on a blood trail and you don't have a whole lot of blood, and then all of a sudden you are the lowest of lows, and you start second guessing everything that you did on that shot in your setup, the whole previous year prep coming up to it, and I've been there. So I mean it's crazy, but now that's always kind of a while back where we kind of did the shot placement and I was showing the triangle. If you always focus right in the middle of the triangle, you're gonna get good blood. Just because at a minimum you're gonna have a double lung complete pass through, blood coming out both sides. That is ideal. Stranger things happen, like ticking off of ribs, and then you get things that really, really confuse you. Okay. If I recover my arrow and it has dark red blood, that is definitely telling me liver hit. Liver hits are fatal, but it's going to be an agonizing 6 to 8 hours for you and the bull. You got two options at that point. You can camp out exactly where you're at for 6, 7 hours and then start on the blood trail, or you can roll off the mountain and then come back. The thing about liver hits, most of the time bulls are going to head for water on liver hits. Most of the time. They're going to go to a place to where they can crawl in and lay down, and they know that they can lay down and not be disturbed for a very long time. So they are going to go to a thick, nasty place that majority of the time has water, that they don't have to go too far. A lot of times with elk on a miss hit, they're going to want to go somewhere. They're going to want to get to what they feel is a safe distance and then lay down. Their blood coagulates very, very fast. So that's why they will go lay down and then get back up once they've had a chance to really stop that bleeding and wander off. That's how a lot of elk get lost, because they went and they bedded down. Now, there's a lot of times where they bedded down, they'll expire right in that bed. But unfortunately, sometimes people misread the hit or get too impatient and they push that bull. And then he jumps out of the bed, and then you can't find another lick of blood. And now you're grid searching the whole mountainside, the whole valley, waiting for a couple of days for the crows to show up to let you know where your bull's at. So that's why I kind of said earlier, if I know for a fact it's arterial or lung, I'm gonna keep going. Because, like I said, usually by that time it's been 15, 20 minutes. And you're kind of going pretty slow at the start anyways, because you're reading all the sign. Now, what happens if you don't have a lot of blood? This is where you have a few options that if you're by yourself, flagging tape is your best friend. And flag and mark every piece of blood. And you have to really, really be looking. You can't stand full height, be looking down. You got to be hunched over, looking on the ground. You got to be looking on sticks, on rocks, any brush. You need to turn those branches upside down and look on the underside of the leaves. So blood trailing is not always where blood's going to be, on the top of the leaves, on the rock, right in the middle of the trail, on a stick where it's easy for you to find. No, it is hide and seek. And especially if you have a poor blood trail, that, I mean, I remember one time we were getting a speck of blood, had probably every 60 to 75 yards, and then it would just be a small drip. But there was three of us, so we would actually leave somebody at the last spot of blood while the other two were searching. And that's where, if that elk's on a trail, then all of a sudden the trail splits, you've got somebody standing at that, the two people can split on the trail. And that's where, recognizing the track, like I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, recognizing the track can kind of help you follow, that as well. But with multiple people, then you just play that leapfrog. The marking tape when you're solo is nice because you can establish a line of travel. And that line of travel is actually beneficial when you do have a poor blood trail, because it gives you a good general sense of direction that he's going. And if you know your area, that could be a good clue too, because then you know the general direction. But and I'm going to caution on this, knowing your area, sometimes people will go, oh, well, I know where he's going. He's going over to here. And they will abandon the blood trail to go where they think that bull went, only to spend time going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, crap, let's go back to last blood. Well, yeah, you should have just stayed on the blood. The reason I say it's, if you know the area and you have a good idea where you think he's going based on general direction, that's going to help you find the next spot of blood. Not abandon it and just go jump to that area. Now there's times where down on hands and knees looking. We've got some rocks up here in Idaho that have kind of a maroon tint to it, and some leaves that also look like has blood to it. So there's constantly on blood trails where it's lick the finger, wipe the leaf, lick the finger, rub the rock. No, nothing's on my thumb. Okay, that's not blood. So, but it just kind of adds to it.
I use Onyx, the tracking function, and every time I find a spot, I'll just mark my spot, and I can track it on the map that way, because I pretty much hunt solo, and it really helps.
And that's a good way to do it too. I would still say use the flagging tape, because then it just gives you a second because there's times where just glancing back real quick and seeing that orange tape helps. I mean, on Onyx is great because, yeah, you can look at it and get general direction, where is he heading, that kind of information too. But flagging tape is just, it's always in my pack. The one thing I will say, if you do use flagging tape, please go back and pull it. Don't just leave it. Pull it. So, okay, the other thing that you can do that I have done in the past is carry a small bottle of hydrogen peroxide with me. What does hydrogen peroxide do when it hits blood?
Opens up.
Bubbles.
So if you're having a really hard time finding blood, if you've got his tracks, find a stick that is the length from the toe of the back track to the heel of the front track. And then what you basically do is then on the next track, you lay that stick down and you take that hydrogen peroxide and you spray in an arcing manner and then take a look. That's if you have the tracks. But you can, if you don't have the tracks, you have that general direction. You can do the same thing too. The only thing is you don't have a very big bottle of it because that's a lot of weight to carry. So, so use it sparingly. Use it when you most need to. Again, a lot of people, instant gratification society, they want it now, that they will give up. I don't know how many people, well, I run into people every year. Yeah, we shot a bull the other day, but we lost it. Oh, really? Yeah, I shot him, and God, we probably looked for 45 minutes, an hour, and we couldn't find him. And I'm like, your 45 minutes should be 4 to 5 days.
Yeah.
Unless you know for a fact that that elk is still alive, you need to be going back to that spot day after day after day. So, but it's some people just give up. If it's a hard blood trail or they go more than 100 yards, nah, he's fine. Or, oh, he turned and going uphill. He's not fatal. He's not fatally hit if he's going uphill. Bull crap. They will.
Seen them do that.
So I've seen him go uphill. I've seen him go downhill. I've seen him go, cross hill. I've seen him jump over 4-foot logs. So, I mean, especially in that last little bit where they have the dash for life is what I call it. They don't really have much blood left in them. They're just going on pure adrenaline and going. And that's usually the one that on that dash that when you find him, you will find dirt all up in his nose and because he took a digger. So I've also had it, we're sitting here following the trail, and the blood just absolutely just stopped. And I keep going up the trail and come back and up the trail and what the heck? And there's a tree right next to me and I go to put my hand on the tree to rest and I felt something wet and looked and well, he stumbled and took a hard 90 off the trail right there and he was only 15 yards off the trail in some buckbrush. But I was so focused on that direction that I didn't pause and look around for other clues. There was a blood trail another time that I was on, and I mean, I had my nose to the ground. And I'm sitting there, and here's this little roll, and I'm looking for tracks, and I'm looking for blood, and Ryan's standing behind me, and he goes, "What the heck are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm looking for next blood." He goes, "Why don't you pick your eyes up a little bit?" And I go, "Huh?" And he was only 10 yards in front of me, but he was just on the other side of this little roll. But I was so focused on the roll where the trail went up that I didn't pause to look around. The other thing, your nose is your friend. So, I mean, there's a lot of times that I have smelt the bull before we found the bull. And in fact, when I was with Bugling Bull Game Calls, they have a video series that's full of adventure. There's a bull on there, Don West, I was calling. That is a bull that we shot in the evening. Couldn't find blood. It got too dark. We backed out, came back in the next morning, got on the trail. I found the bull still on his feet. Got Don. Don slipped in, shot him 3 more times before that bull finally died. But I smelt that bull before I found him. And in fact, I was following tracks looking for blood, and I smelt him, and I jumped up on this log and started walking across the log so I wouldn't make any noise. And that's how I found him. Just kind of standing there. His head was hanging low. I could tell he was hurting. So, But that was one of the toughest bulls I've ever seen. That guy had holes through his heart, his lungs, his liver, every major vital organ had an arrow pass through it. And the only reason that dude finally fell over is because the little snag that he was resting on, he had his rump resting on this snag. The snag finally broke and he lost his footing, and that's when he finally went down. That was the bull that I called in for Don, that his first shot was 5.5 feet. Yeah, he was a little worried that the arrow wasn't going to leave the bow before it actually hit the bull. Actually, Don shot him twice that night, because then he came down and he stopped by me and he shot him quartering away also. So the final two shots were the next morning. So, but yeah, your nose is your is a great friend. Um, Now, if you've been following the trail for a while, and the other thing that will happen too is you will see a lot of blood on the blood trail, and it could be that you're still going and going. Sometimes you just get one that just, he's got a will to live. Then he's going to go. And so you've been following this trail. There's tons of blood. You're at 100 yards or maybe a little more, and you're just shaking your head. There is no way that this dude is still alive after that amount of blood. There's gallons and gallons of blood in their circulatory system. So there's a lot. It's amazing how much they can lose and still survive. So you'll see it all the time in September, bulls getting gouged or getting attacked by mountain lions or something, and they survive. So
Are we Googling how much blood is in an elk?
How
Yeah,
did you know?
Listening to the keystrokes.
and what's it say?
It's not giving me how much blood.
Really? Here,
Not yet.
we'll do this the quieter way.
Yeah.
How much blood do elk and deer have in their bodies? Oh, whoops. Well, that don't help, because I said yeah, and that's all it recorded. How much elk? Ugh,
How much elk is in it?
how much elk is in a blood? How much blood is in an elk? To give context, the average amount of blood in a medium-sized domestic sheep is only about 1.5 gallons.
Sheep.
Extrapolate that to a 700-pound elk, and you could estimate that there would be roughly 5 gallons to work with.
Wow. Wow.
a lot of blood.
Who knew? 5 gallons.
5 gallons.
Oh,
So basically, the rule of thumb that they say is roughly an ounce for every 100 pounds of body. That don't seem right.
No, that's not right.
no.
Ounce for every pound.
Yeah, ounce for every pound.
Ounce for every pound. There we go. So, but yeah, roughly 5 gallons. So, blood trailing it's detective work. It's definitely a lot tougher by yourself, but also too, it can be easier by yourself, because if you're with a group and you're the one that shot the elk, you're going to be more focused on the blood trail. You're going to, especially if it's a tough blood trail, you're going to take your time and really pick apart the trail and look for evidence. Whereas the guys that you're hunting with, they'll be like, oh, you comb that spot, I'm going to jump ahead of you and look. And now they're walking up and down the trail. They could be wiping out sign. They could be, wiping out his tracks, stepping on blood that they didn't see. Um, so that's where it's kind of nice that if you have the right group, and again, I'm thankful for the guys that I hunt with. Bryce and Brandon have the same approach that I have, and the reason I think they have that is because a couple of Brandon's first bulls were not perfect hit, and those guys were about ready to give up, and I'm like, no, we're gonna keep looking. Just keep eyes on the ground, keep looking, keep dogging, keep going. And we found them. Now those guys are the same way. They're eyes and nose on the ground, dogging, just turning over everything, which makes it really, really nice because they're not going to quit. They're not going to quit until the shooter sits there and says, you know what, we're not going to find them. I don't think it was that good of a hit or this or that, which that never happens in our group. Our group is, we'll all of us will stay together that day and keep looking. And then the next day the shooter will say, you know what, you guys go hunt. I'm going to go back and keep grid searching and keep looking. I'll message you guys if I find something. So, which happens. Now, what if it's at night? What if it's right at last light and you make that shot?
Ultraviolet lights are awfully good.
Ultraviolet lights work well. There's also, have you seen those flashlights that have four buttons, black, red, green, and blue, so you can turn on
Mm-hmm.
different lights? If you
Mm-hmm.
turn on the red, green, and blue, that will make the effervescence in the blood glow. It's almost, and they do have blood tracking lights out there. I know Primos makes one and a couple of other companies. But the other thing about the nighttime is, okay, do we press forward? Do we get the headlamps out and do we keep looking, or do we back off the mountain and come back in the morning? You need to first off know what the temperature is going to be that night. What is the weather going to do that night? If you've got rain coming in, get your headlamps out. You're staying on the mountain because if rain comes in, it'll wash away all your evidence. So if there's rain coming in, you're staying on the mountain. If the temperature at night does not get below 40 degrees, you're staying on the mountain. If the temperature is going to dip down below 40 degrees, say it's going to be 35 at night, you're fine leaving that elk overnight. So, because it will get cold enough, and even with the hide, the cold will drive through. So that's the thing with elk quarters. You could, as long as it's getting below 40 degrees at night, let's say you're up on a 10-day hunt, you shoot a bull on day one. Well, you don't want to leave and have to run the meat. If it's going to be below 40, you can leave those quarters hanging in camp for 2 weeks.
But
Because
what if it's getting up to 70 in the day or 75?
doesn't matter as long as you've got it in the shade. The main thing is it has to get down below 40 at night to drive that cold in. And the other thing is on the hind quarter, you need to, where the kneecap is, you need to take your knife right underneath that kneecap, right up against the femur, and then follow the femur down, and you'll see this great big hunk of meat fall forward. And if it's cool enough during the day when you do that and that falls forward, you're going to see all this steam escape. That is trapped heat, and that's where the term bone sour comes from. Bone sour is heat that is trapped in the meat up next to the bone, and that's where that comes from.
Now, where's that cut? Where do you make the cut?
So the hind quarter where it's hanging, you'll see on the front, there's a thing that looks just like a kneecap, just like ours. You can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So the hip socket's hanging down here, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have the leg up there.
Mm-hmm.
Just take your knife right underneath that kneecap and go straight in, and you'll feel the bone. And you'll see a line in the meat right there. But basically you just take that knife right to the bone and then follow that femur bone down And you only have to go down 10, 12 inches to get that flap. You're just trying to get that to fall forward enough to let that heat escape.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So, um, but yeah, so and I've asked several butchers, how long can I hang an elk in camp? This or that. And they all say the same thing. Under 40 degrees at night, you're fine. So, because even though it might be 70 outside, in the shade still may only be 60, 65.
Hanging it, I assume you put it in a game bag to keep the flies off of it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll hear all kinds of tricks. Sprinkle it with pepper. Sprinkle it with cayenne pepper. That'll keep the flies and the bees away. Sprinkle it with this and no. So here's what I do. As soon as the sun goes down and it's nighttime, I rip those game bags off. Because that game bag can still act as a little bit of insulator. I want that meat exposed to the cold air at night. Now, in the morning before we leave camp, game bags are back on. Because flies and bees and all that, they're in bed at night. Don't have to worry about them. So yank that game bag off, let the cold air drive through, and then pull that game bag or put that game bag on in the morning before you leave. So, okay. Any questions?
Well, the tracking is really good and important, but the most important thing is to get that double lung shot and watch them fall. That way you don't have to go very far.
Yeah.
I haven't had very many fall within sight.
I've had several.
So,
I've been fortunate.
but I hunt a little bit thicker stuff. So, no, I've had it where the arrow zipped through the bull so quick he went uphill a little bit and then his legs came out from underneath him and he rolled back down the hill and ended up 4 feet from the shooter that made the shot.
I think I saw the video of that, didn't I?
Yeah.
That was cool.
I posted that video. That was insane. So, but no, you can usually hear them go down. You know that 5x5 that's here. I shot him at 36 yards quartering away. One of the longest. Actually, that's about the longest shot that I've ever taken on an elk. 36 yards quartering away. I saw him roll, go, and then he goes into this stand of Quakies, and then all of a sudden there was this old brown Quakey snag that all of a sudden falls over. And I'm like,
he knocked it over.
I said, he's dead right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I went up and again, it was a blood trail like the one I showed you. It's like somebody just took a bucket and just walked along and just dumped it. And sure enough, he was right there where that dead snag fell over. But yeah, you can hear them. You can hear them when they fall. So, Jim, what were you going to say?
So what kind of game bags do you use? Because the problem we have here, I don't know if you'll have them, but we got bees that'll come up and take the meat off.
Yeah.
Seen those?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Hornets.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, hornets and yellow jackets. So
Yeah.
and we have bald face hornets that'll come and take chunks of meat too. So so there's a couple of bags that I use. I just switched to the new Born and Raised Outdoor game bags because they're zippered.
Oh.
You can unzip, lay them open, lay your quarter down, then pull the sides over and zip it up, and then cinch the top drawstring.
That is cool.
So the other one that I really like is 6 a.m. Outdoors, VIAM. So it's actually 6 a.m., but it looks like Viam Outdoors. They're out of Montana. They actually, so I field tested and designed a game bag kit for them. They have a kit that I still give Tristan a bad time because the paracord that he used on it is pink with silver reflective, but he calls those the Batiste bags because I put that kit together, and so I give them a bad time about choosing the color pink on the game bags. And then so I tell them it's okay. I'm tough enough to wear pink.
Kuyu makes some really good game bags too. I've had good luck with them.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with game bags is you want to make sure that they're breathable. So because a lot of the game bags on the market are not breathable. And as soon as you put them in, you're locking the heat in.
It's like putting in a plastic bag then.
It is. It is.
Whoops. Yeah.
Um,
Green meat.
one of the other bags that I loved using for years, they're just kind of bulky, is Goat Gear. Goat Gear secured a bunch of material from Nike. So that material that's on the inside of your shoes, on Nike shoes, he secured a bunch of that material. It's moisture wicking, it's breathable. They're some of the coolest game bags. I have a 6-piece set for elk, and then he also has full deer body sacks that I have the deer body sacks, but like I said, they're a little larger. I like the packability of the 6 a.m. and the born and raised. So I've tried caribou gear, I've tried black ovis, I've tested a lot of them over the years. And just the 6 a.m. and the born and raised are just the two that have used on a lot of animals and just really trust them and like them. Okay.
I was gonna ask you, you were talking about taking them out of the bags at night. Are you taking the hide off prior to bagging them, or are you leaving the hide on
Absolutely.
them?
Nope.
Okay,
Hide off.
because you talked about the hide holding the heat, and I wasn't sure.
So that's just if they're laying overnight. So
Okay.
if you're doing a late season cow hunt that's like in November, December, you can just remove those quarters with the hide still on. That's not a problem because that's getting plenty cold at night and plenty cold during the day. You'll be fine. But archery season, August, September, yeah, you got to take the hide off. Um, the thing I'll do if it's going to be multiple trips to get that elk off the mountain, I will find a creek nearby and I'll build a cache where I'll get a bunch of sticks and build a little elevated platform above the creek in the shade that I can lay quarters down on. So now I have the shade and I have that cool air from the creek just circulating that meat. So
But
that
but not in the water.
no, the three things that cause meat spoilage are heat, dirt, and moisture. So that's why you want to get your meat cooled down as fast as possible. You want to keep it as clean as possible, and you don't ever want to get it wet. There's a new product that just hit the market this year called Game Hide. So you guys know lint rollers?
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine lint rollers in a pad like this that you can pull out of the pack and you just start dabbing on the meat to pull any dirt or hair off the meat.
Hmm.
So they come in a pack. They're called Game Hide. You can find them on Amazon. So new product. In fact, that's what I got all the guys for Christmas was a pack of that to throw in their pack, especially Brandon, because Brandon is clumsy and kicks dirt
Everywhere.
constantly on the meat.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, there's some people can't help themselves. Just happens.
he's just a big clumsy buffoon. So, but that's all right. Yeah, in fact, the bull that he shot last year, last year, Bryce and I were on the opposite side of the canyon, and he and Kevin were in Shangri-La, and they messaged that bull down. So Bryce and I worked our way over there, and I just I sat down and got my lunch out. Then Brandon's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, you have been watching me jump in with my knife for years to do this.
Your turn.
I know you've cut these up with me. I know what you're doing. I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to enjoy the show. Don't worry, when you're ready for a game bag, I will get up and I'll grab the game bag to put the quarter in. I said, but other than that, my knife ain't touching that elk. So, and Bryce sat down next to me and Brandon's like, what are you doing? You and Kevin can figure it out. This is your bull. You've seen us do it enough breaking down a bull. So how about it?
Go for it.
That's the cool thing. Bryce and I have done it enough together that we know exactly where to jump in. If one person jumps in on the hind, the other person jumps in on the front. One person will usually make the first initial cuts, but Bryce and I can do the no mess way of cleaning and have a bull broken down and ready to pack in about 40 minutes. We've got it dialed in. So it did not take Brandon and Kevin 40 minutes. They were more pushing about an hour and 20. But
Yeah.
that's okay. So, all right, guys. Any questions about tracking or blood trail? And hopefully that kind of gave some good tips and good ideas.
Yeah,
Well,
there's some future elk callers right down there.
Yeah, they tune in every once in a while.
Yeah, for short time frames. I was going to tell you, last year I liver shot my mule deer, and it only made it 150 yards and dropped over.
Yeah.
Wow. You're fortunate.
It was quartering two, and I got the angle bad, and it just hit a little further back than I wanted, but it only made 150 yards.
Yeah. It elk seem to be a little bit hardier
A little
than
tougher.
deer. I mean, yeah, I've liver punched a deer and same thing, didn't go very far. So, me personally, I've only liver punched one bull, and that was the most first light, and that was the most antagonizing day I ever had. I think I ended up finding him at 10 o'clock that night, and it made for, I think it was about 2:45, 3 o'clock in the morning by the time we got back to camp with everything off the mountain. Needless to say, we did not hunt the next day. We had a camp morning to sleep in and have a good breakfast. So, but all right, guys. Well, we will wrap it up. Sounds like somebody's hungry. What do you want for dinner? What do you want to eat?
He already had dinner and decided not to eat, so
Oh, I see. Kind of like
we're being picky today.
kind of like my son, where he'll be like, "Okay, I'm full," and then about 15 minutes later, "Can I have some dessert?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I suppose." And then he gets a bag of chips. I'm not really sure when a bag of chips became dessert, but all
Depends
right,
on the
guys.
chip.
What's that?
Depends on the chips.
True, true. All right, we're going to wrap this up for tonight. As always, guys, appreciate each of you tuning in. As always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a
Thanks,
great
Michael. Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
guys.
See you later.